Hi, welcome to today's conversation with Nadja and Ro about all things to do with teams and coaching. Today, we're going to get into how we work together as coaching pairs and talking through some of the contracting. But before we get into that, please, as ever, like and subscribe to the channel. It makes a huge difference and we really appreciate you supporting us. So today's topic, how we work together as a coaching pair. And I'm going to hand this over to my coaching partner to lead us in this conversation.
Yeah, Ro, thanks. I thought it may be interesting to, instead of like talking about team coaching, actually putting it in action and actually having people almost like a little bit of a sneak peek, these kitchens in these restaurants where people sort of sit down and they actually can see inside the kitchen and what's happening. So we kind of thought to do something like that today. And it's really interesting because we had a bit of a chat beforehand. And I think, it's worthwhile sort of acknowledging with, what mindset we're entering this conversation at the moment. So I know, Ro, there's lots of things on your mind, like work to be done, a bit stressful. I've actually been on a completely different path of self-exploration, personal development, feeling inspired. And so, yeah, it would be interesting how, we come together as a team coaching pair, in terms of leveraging off each other, and giving it sort of our strength in the team coaching session. So we thought it would be interesting to what we all do in team coaching right off the bat is team contracting. It's contracting between us as team facilitators, but it's also contracting with the team. And it's really important for the team to be contracting with themselves, because remember, we're there only for a short while. The whole intention is that the team sort of carries this team contract with them in terms of how are we going to be together with each other? How are we going to be supporting each other? What do you need in terms of a safe environment or to be trusted or building relationships? So it's really all about the contracting. And so we've prepared a list of questions that gives us a little bit of structure for this session. So just to give you an experience of how we come together as team coaches, and then how we execute team coaching in real life. How does that sound, Ro?
Yep, that sounds great. Contracting is always one of those topics that comes up, and there's the ABC, always be contracting. And I think we sometimes forget that when we work in organizations, whether we're in a team or not, we forget that when we're agreeing to do things, that's the contracting process. It's not the document, it's the conversation.
Yeah, and that conversation starts right there and then, right? With how do we introduce ourselves to each other? So that goes for us as team coaches, but also within the team. But, since we're not actually team coaching, let's see ourselves as the team. So how do we introduce ourselves? What do we bring in? With what baggage do we come in? What resources do we come in the room? So, Ro, how would you introduce yourself?
Typically when we work with teams, I normally focus on the things that I'm going to contribute as a team coach. Obviously, my creativity, the fact that I can create tools on the fly. Um, Although I don't always like using tools, but that's the skill set that I've got, and I know that people always want tools, so it's always good to mention that. So that's kind of things that I'm focusing on, and also the observational stuff and silence, which obviously you've experienced when I've coached, that I use silence a lot. I allow the team to explore for themselves. So that's it. Obviously, I would say it slightly differently from that, but that's kind of what I would bring in the flavors of when I'm introducing myself. What about you?
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, what you're saying is, like someone said, the magic is in the silence. So in the silence, actually the magic happens. And I think, our journeys into team coaching have been quite different. And I think that's why we really collaborate really well together. Your sort of experience with some tools, your analytical side, which obviously I have as well. But my journey into coaching was really around sort of, listening in between the lines, so observing, taking it all in. Maybe, I'm a bit more introverted person, so I'm quite happy to actually ask questions and tune in and really listen, right, what is actually being said? And then also in the silence, although I must be completely honest, I find silence also a bit disturbing sometimes and a bit uncomfortable. But it is really where the magic happens. And you'll see that time and time again. And it's about creating sort of those experiences I think are really worthwhile for the team to uncover.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah. I'm intrigued
So
that you,
maybe moving.
sorry, carry on. I was just intrigued by the fact that you said you found silence uncomfortable sometimes. That's interesting. Yeah.
Well, we are in a fast-paced society, right? So we're and I think schooling systems, organizations, they're always. I find in coaching when I ask a question, it's almost like the person is sort of conditioned to come up with an answer straight away, and it's always I say you're just relax and whatever comes to you, and it doesn't really matter what comes quite often because whatever comes will be an entry into something that is actually going on beneath. But in terms of time, and I think we said, we'll keep this short and sharp. I mean, we're just so enthusiastic about the work we do, right? So we can talk about for ages. But just in terms of our dynamic, when and how to take over from each other. And I think we spoke about that last time as well, is where do you pick up the slack from your teammate? Where do you see they're struggling maybe, or where do they need support? And how do you respectfully step in and leverage it actually? What's your thought about that?
Yes, I'm thinking how we've worked together, and obviously there's the open invitation. So, when one of us is coaching, actively coaching in the room, inviting the other into the space by asking Nadja, what are you observing? So that's my take. What are you observing? Might be an example of that. And also just um, as much as we're observing the team, observing what our co-coach is doing to see are there any signals that you're giving that you maybe want to interject. And I think as we coach together more, that became more natural. You can pick up when the other person is wanting to maybe throw in an observation or something. So yeah, and obviously we contracted as well that if we are following a flow of thought and maybe just want the other person just to hold back for a few minutes, how we communicated that with each other as well. So there's some of that which we've agreed up front, and then some of it happens in the moment, and then we review it afterwards and say, how did you feel when that happened? Was that okay for you? What do we need to do differently next time? So that's what I
Yeah.
noticed about how we worked in the space. What did you notice?
Yeah, no, I think that observation is really, really key. And I think my biggest learning in coaching in general, maybe, but especially working with you, because I think you're a great role model of just calling it out. Whatever is happening, whatever dynamic is in the room, if you call it out straight away, you can feel this sort of sigh of awareness, this sigh of relief of, oh, that's what's happening. Right. And then it's out there, and we can respectfully then all sort of look at it, like I think, I'm a great fan of actually making, using the hands as a source of intelligence of, like you can do all sorts of creative stuff in terms of drawing it out or placing objects or looking at things. But then it's out there and everybody can look at it. And I think that's really also important in the next question is when and how to make each other aware of a dynamic in the room. It's really around that and really sort of sensing into when is a good opportunity to actually bring that in, so that it allows people to digest whatever has just happened, whatever has just been said.
Yeah. And I think so as you were saying that, I was thinking also about the physical layout of the room. Obviously, when we've worked together physically, we've kind of been on the outer circle of the team so that we can see each other from either directly or on our peripheral vision. And then obviously when we're working in like Zoom or Teams, it's harder in one sense because you can't pick up the physical energy that's coming from each other. But it's easier in another sense because you can actually see everybody on the screen. And so you can notice you've got a kind of a picture in front of you, and the story starts to emerge from that picture. So yeah, it's interesting. We work differently in the different physical spaces, either online or when we're working together.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I love that how you say, like we can take a sort of outside look. So it's really that's the at the core of the benefit of having a coach, right? Like engaging with a team, because ultimately the team, like I'm a true believer, and I know you the same, the team knows what's best for them. They don't need anyone to tell them what to do or how to do it or how to execute it. It's just that set of extra eyes, right, that can observe dynamics that are going on, and certain dynamics that are healthy and certain dynamics that will hold the team back and actually, just prevents them from being that great team, that they're already a good team, but that greatness in that team that can come out.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And that I get, just as you're saying that, I think that's a really good example of how we riff off each other. You'll pick up something, a slightly different nuance to what I will pick up. And that then is extra data for the team, because often teams don't have anybody watching them to give them that observational feedback. And that is where team coaching helps. It's that ability to get a different perspective on how the team is being seen rather than how the team sees itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, fantastic. So, how to work with each other's strengths, and how do we support each other's weaknesses or developmental area? Any insights on that? What have you been noticing?
So, I think you have a natural ability to take that sort of systems perspective of the team. So when we worked in physical space, you've used your knowledge and expertise around systemic constellation work, which I think was really great, because that then provided an opportunity for the team to have a different energy and also to get a different perspective on something. So because I tend to be more hands off, and allowing the team to have an experience and then getting them to pause and reflect on what just happened, I think it was a really good demonstration of our different strengths and how that then can help the team have different kinds of experiences that they can then build on. So that's how I experienced it, but obviously that's just my experience from inside me. How did you experience that?
Yeah, beautiful. I think no, you're spot on. I think what I observed is obviously language is your forte. Is you can make things really really simple. Whereas in myself, I sometimes notice like I can have all these thoughts in my head, but where for me it becomes really sort of useful, and it's when I make it visible. So for me, that whole thing of getting it out of my head, sort of on paper, on in a constellation, in objects, for me is really, really helpful. But your ability to articulate it and actually approach sort of the rational mind in that as well, and being able to be that translation between how one thing is actually useful in complementary to other things, that is really where I see that we work really, really well together.
Yeah. I think the other thing that you bring into the space is that sensing. You were very good at sensing kind of the feelings that potentially were at play in the room as well, um, which we don't always acknowledge when we're in teams, but actually they're really important. And we talked last time about non-violent communication and understanding what that's all about. So yeah, sorry, that was my phone going off.
Very, very much, like the system is just demonstrating whatever is going on. There's a lot going on, I'm sitting outside for the first time, which I always sit here in the morning and I just love it. And I thought, oh, for today, I'll just come in with that sort of, nature vibe. And you're obviously in the thick of it. So again, and
I've changed my perspective as well, so people can see all of my books and all of the toys that I use in my facilitation. So we both got a different physical view of our worlds today, haven't we? So it's really interesting.
totally, 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 totally. So maybe to round it off then, because you mentioned it already before, like after every team coaching that we do, we debrief, right? We go through, what were the things that went really well, where, what are we sensing? What's happening? Were you struggling? Was there anything I did that, may have triggered something or took us in a direction? Or, how do we debrief each other? And more importantly, how do we debrief in such a way that, next time we'll do better and it's actually a learning opportunity?
Yeah. So I think we were really good at this in terms of our most recent engagement because we did this really well. Um, the first session we ever did together was interesting because we've never worked together. So I think the debrief there was more detailed and more around, okay, what do we need to be aware of? What do we need to do differently next time? And then what we did in our sessions after that was actually apply what we learned. And so the debrief became slightly more about the team. So it kind of moved from that very first session, it was about ours, and then the second session and subsequent sessions, it was around how we actually work with the team. And yeah, so the debrief process is really, really crucial when you work together because you don't know until you co-coach with somebody, you don't know what it's going to be like. And so you need to have a respectful way of doing that if you're going to keep that relationship going. And obviously we now have been working together for a long time, so we now know how each other works. I'm not sure that's a good or a bad thing because then you can actually second guess what the other person is thinking.
Yeah, no, and I love, and I think that's a great sort of full circle for a session today, which I heard you say is that, from those two individuals coming together, doing a lot of things, we're growing into a team, and so the entity becomes a team. So from two individual human beings to a team being. And I think we always close with that thought that we always need to remember we're human beings, we're team beings, not doings. And
Yeah,
it's in that space, in that silence, in that pause where the magic happens.
yeah, fantastic. Awesome. This has been a really great conversation today. I've really enjoyed it. And again, just to remind people to like and subscribe to the channel. And if you've enjoyed today's conversation, have got any questions about how you contract together as a coaching pair or want to find out more, then please drop us a comment in the comments below. We will see you next time for more coaching chats with Ro and Nadia. Take care.
Thanks for listening. Bye.